All right, folks. Well, there was a little hush in the room, so I think that's the cue that we should probably start. So I'm gonna kick us off. Just to first, I want to say thanks to Beth Sjogren. Where are you, Beth? You were just here. Beth Sjogren for being very persistent in asking us to do this. And then once we started meeting, we sort of couldn't stop talking. So it has been a real joy to think about this panel, and hopefully it will be a little bit interesting to you. When I was walking over here just now, there were some alumni, and they were sort of coming towards each other, and one of the small groups said there, "How was that talk?" And the other gentleman said, I just lost an hour of my life, and I'll never get it back. So we're going to try to raise that bar so you don't leave here feeling like you just lost an hour of your life. So anyway, with that being said, and we also feel like we're back in 1985 and we're all 18 years old because like we have a lot of rabble-rouser friends in the front. So it might get a little raucous, people. All right. So my name is Fran Purcell, class of 89. Yeah! Okay. And I will be serving as your moderator today. And let me give you a little overview of our game plan. Okay, I did play basketball here, so I always have my little sports analogies. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off by just briefly introducing ourselves. And then we actually have a question for all of you. So we're going to invite you to do a little turn and talk, is what we call it in the biz, okay? And then Karin and Emily are going to offer some more substantive thoughts about the liberal arts and workforce preparation. And then we'll open up for a little Q&A, all right? So that's our game plan. Everyone feel good about that? Pat Kelly? Okay. Pat loves it. Okay. So all right, so Emily, why don't you start us off? And we're going to do a little bit of a different type of intro rather than sort of talking through our careers and whatnot. Each of us is going to talk a little bit about what inspired us to get into our careers, what's been a little challenging about them, and also what's been joyful or delightful. So, Emily, you ready to kick us off?
Absolutely.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you. We're so excited you're all here. So I'm actually... Okay, sorry. Here we go. Hello, is that working? All right. So I'm wrapping up my 25th year working in public higher education, and I started a job at Westfield State after going to graduate school at St. Andrews in Scotland for 1 year, and then at the University of Minnesota. And I was an English department faculty member at Westfield, and then a long-serving department chair. I didn't get the memo that you were only supposed to do that for a short time. I was a department chair for 9 years, and then I was a dean for arts, humanities, and social sciences. And then 2 years ago, I went out on the job market and got a new job as Dean of Arts and Sciences of the School of Arts and Sciences at Eastern Connecticut State University. And I don't think I knew the career that I was signing up for. I bet a lot of us might feel that way when we started out. I didn't really know what a career in higher ed was going to entail, but I think what motivated me was I really loved college. I loved the college classroom. I loved office hours. I loved being in classrooms. I loved the campus, the kind of life of the campus. And actually, I was reflecting, that's actually what I still love. I really love the college campus. I love the work that happens on a college campus, the work that happens in classrooms and the life of a college. And so even though I no longer teach, I work as a dean to support students and to support faculty in doing their best work and helping the college campus be a place that can be really transformative for students. I've worked in public higher education, and so what makes it delightful and what makes it challenging are this. What's delightful is that I've been in this work long enough that the students I've had are adults, and I've seen them launch their lives, and it's really rewarding to be there when they're figuring something out, and then to see what they do and to see how they're making use of their education. So that's been, I carry around their stories with me. It's been really rewarding to have that life's work. What's frustrating is that I work in public higher education, and so we often lack resources and are facing budget cuts. And also in my sector, which is the regional comprehensive universities, those are often overlooked. There's not a lot of respect often. So those are the frustrating things.
Karin, thank you. All right. I guess 25 years is the magic number because I am at 25 years in higher education. I was at the University of Kansas, where I was a program director and then executive director of the Kansas City Area Education Research Consortium. I also taught in the EdPsych program there. And then the last 5 years, I have been at the University of Missouri, where I am a research professor in the Ed Leadership Policy and Foundations program, and I run the Urban Education Research Center. So I, in terms of what motivated me to come into higher ed or education, it dates back to Amherst. And so my senior year, I had no idea what I was going to do for my life, and Professor Servos, who was my advisor, history of science, I don't know if he saw potential or he just needed a live body, but he asked me to serve on the curriculum committee for the history department, and I got to see behind, into the black box of what happens at Amherst. How do decisions get made around curriculum? What gets taught? How they teach it? Who gets access to courses? And it was fascinating to me. So I got kind of hooked on those equity issues, and today, now, however many years later, I'm really thinking about educational equity. I do that work in Kansas City, so we have 25 higher ed institutions in our region, and I'm working across those higher ed institutions and the school districts to understand the pathways to educational success. So that runs K-12 through higher ed and beyond. So what motivates me, I think, is being able to be at the table on those conversations, to be able to thinking about how to make education better. I often talk about Amherst as one of the greatest things that ever happened to me, and not everyone gets that opportunity. So I want to make sure that in my home area, Kansas City, that's an opportunity for everyone. What frustrates me, I think resources is one thing. Universities are slow, plodding institutions that don't adapt to change very well, and so that can be really frustrating. I think, too, I'm in the Midwest. I'm in Kansas and Missouri. Our legislature thinks and has ideas around how education should happen and roll out, and they don't often rely on the faculty and the staff to inform those decisions, so that can be frustrating.
Great, thanks both. And briefly for myself also, I think my career absolutely I can thank to being at Amherst, and specifically to Becky Lee, if some of you remember her, who was our Dean of Students. And Becky was, I became a resident counselor, and she basically was like, you can actually make a career in higher education. And I was like, no way, that's wild. So she really was my very first mentor. And she sadly passed away several years ago, but she always has held a very special part of just for me personally, and will always be appreciative to her influence in my life. And I've just been, I think, super lucky in my career trajectory, which has been a little unusual in that I have done a number of different types of jobs. I've worked in state policy for the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education. I've been provost at one of the state's community colleges. Before where I am now at Harvard Graduate School of Education, I was the program director at the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, working on a multi-year study on the future of undergraduate education in the United States. So it's just been, I mean, really fun. It's been a really fun career and interesting. I get to like do something I love from many different angles. And now I feel like I've almost come full circle because similar to like when I was an RC here, like I get to work with students and they're like, they're like so hopeful, God bless. And like, mostly I'm just trying not to crush their spirits, So that in the last few years has been a real joy to me, like getting to work with, really like the next generation and just seeing like their enthusiasm around so many of the issues that are important to me around equity and whatnot. And I think, like both Emily and Karin have said, I think the heyday of American higher education is sort of a little bit past. And it has a lot of challenges, like almost too many to sort of tick off. But I certainly have seen that in my career around inequities of resources, inequities around who has access to quality education, who graduates from college, who doesn't graduate from college, loans and student debt. So there's a lot that as an enterprise, we still have a lot of work to do, and I'm glad to be, you got to do some sort of work in life, so I'm glad to be in this fight doing this sort of work. So, okay, folks, so listen. Now we're going to, as you might have read a little bit about, what we're going to be talking about, but we thought it would be a good idea since, all of you have a lot of experience yourselves. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do, okay? Everybody listening? Good. You can tell I've been in the classroom for a few years. I love it. All right. So what I'd like you to do is to find somebody either next to you or not next to you, but one other person. You can do groups of 3 should you choose to do that. That's also fine. We won't ask you to leave. And here's what I'd like you to discuss, okay? And we're going to give you about 5 minutes or so, and then we're going to ask 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll ask. I'll call on I'll do some warm calling. Okay, and ask for you to sort of talk a little bit about what you talked about. So find another person or two, and what we'd like you to talk to each other about is this. First, how do you define the liberal arts, right? How do you define the liberal arts? And the second part of that is, how did your experience with the liberal arts at Amherst College go ahead to inform your career? What was helpful about it, not helpful? How do you sort of see that relationship? So, okay, go ahead, go talk, and then we'll come back in a few minutes. All right, so before we start jumping in, we would love to hear a little bit of feedback about your conversations. So why don't we just get a few folks to tell us what you heard or what you talked about and around how you define the liberal arts. I heard a few good things going around, but who'd like to share?
Jeff Swift, class of 94, is really good.
Oh, yeah, I like to be voluntold. Jeff Swift, class of 94. What do you got?
Cold called. The way I think about liberal arts, and actually this answer is supplemented by the input from the group here, the 4 of us. It doesn't... 4. We went aggressive. We went 4.
4. Wow. Okay. We'll let you stay.
So It doesn't matter what you're studying. It is all about absorbing, synthesizing, analyzing, and articulating. Those are some of your words right there. Yeah, they were good words. Because if you learn how to process those things...
Wait, Jeff, say it again. Say it. We got absorbing, synthesizing...
process, synthesize, and articulate. Right? Because you're whatever topic, it doesn't matter if you're in fine arts or economics or physics... If you can learn to take that information and process it, figure out a problem, and then articulate it, whether you're in advertising or whatever, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. So the liberal arts isn't the pre-professional. It's trying to be so versatile that if you can do those things and process information and articulate it, then you'll be successful in whatever you do.
Nailed it. All right, nice. Okay, good. You got some. Your phone of friends really appreciated that. They thought you did a good job. All right, other folks who Who else would like to share a little bit about what you talked about defining the liberal arts, which is a term that I think is really misunderstood? Yeah, go ahead. Oh, wait. Oh, we got two people. All right. Okay. Sorry. This gentleman here, and then we'll go over here.
I was in.
Who are you?
I'm
Introduce yourself.
Alex Gordon, class of 1969.
All right.
And I was
69.
in.
All right. Woo.
I can remember from Professor Arnold Ahrens'. I was in a small group, and he was one of the architects of the core curriculum, of course. And the way that he described the liberal arts, and that always stuck in my mind, that the person who's interested in the sciences needs to understand how the sciences impact the rest of the world that they're in. That the person who's in arts, humanities, literature, or is involved in society in the sense of careers related to the social sciences or impacted by the social sciences, they need to understand how science and technology would impact them. So the liberal arts education helps to with that synergy among those different areas or bodies of knowledge. I think that was one of the ways that he described it, and I appreciated that.
Great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. We had someone on this side. Yeah, great. Yeah, great. Okay, good. That's fine. Teamwork makes the dream work. Go ahead.
Absolutely. So I guess I'll start. So we talked.
Why don't you introduce yourself and what year?
Jen Radin, 89. And very aligned with the quadruple in the back. I know it took you guys 4. It only took us 3. Not that we're competing. But we talked about liberal arts in terms of different domains of knowledge and different languages. Political science has its own language, history has its own language, and the pursuit, therefore, sort of forces you to learn those languages and be able to engage with others who are speaking slightly different ones. So we talked about intersectionality of those domains. We talked about how a liberal arts education creates critical thinking and therefore resiliency, whether it's throughout your career resiliency as you maybe change different kinds of careers, but also resiliency in terms of being a citizen and a global citizen. And we had lots of examples that we talked about in all of our careers about how critical it's been.
No, I think that covers everything.
No.
Yeah, it was great synthesis. This is awesome. You really well. So then let's sort of just do a few minutes on the second part of the question, because I think it, obviously let's say we have a lot of fans here in the room. We knew we would about a liberal arts education, but can anyone share a few maybe specific examples of how much of these skills and mindsets that you learned here then have specifically helped you in your careers? Go ahead, Beth. And then I saw that guy over there point to that guy over there. So in the back row, I like when people are calling each other out. We'll do that. All right.
We are good at volunteering others, apparently. That's one of the skills of the liberal arts. I didn't do the reading. You talk. Okay, I graduated with an English degree with my heart really wishing I was a studio artist. And so therefore I was basically unemployable, and I felt like I had no skills and no direction. It was a great time of life. I was having a lot of fun. Anyway, where my career has manifested is I am a communicator and a project manager, and I work in the construction field. And what liberal arts has taught, what it created in me was confidence and curiosity, that I could ask the dumb question and not be afraid to ask the dumb question. And then I could take the information and understand not only the answer to the question, but somehow see the relationship of how that affected what my next step might be and the next step of my team. So I think it, like we were saying, it teaches you about different languages, how to understand the language of the person that you're conversing with, even if you don't really understand, what's the difference between 480 volt and 120 volt. You can sort of tease out what the issues are and create relationship. So that's been the number one thing. And I think if I can drone on, our culture and our planet is we are doubling down on monoculture. Genetic diversity, and in terms of our education of people, we are heavy into tech and STEM. And I think that what is going to be needed in the future are the people that can connect and think about the ethics of a certain situation, the what has been done in the past. If we just focus on the monoculture, we are going to be so less rich and less resilient. And I'm thinking about Amy and Paul, who are going to talk tomorrow about resiliency and agriculture. There's a little foreshadowing of the next,
wow. All right.
the next
like what you're hearing today,
great panel from 1989.
Okay. All right. And let's get one more. Ben he sort of volunteered you, so. All right, we'll get one more comment, and then I'm going to turn to our panelists.
Called out by the former dean of students.
That's right, Ben Lieber.
Paul Lisinski, class of 89. Yeah, so like Beth, I have not had anything that. Actually, let me go back. I've been for my entire life opposed to the word career. It's one of those words that's always made me squeal. I don't like the way it sounds. I don't like the implications. Anyway, so we milk cows, make yogurt. We don't milk cows anymore, but anyway. And so Pat O'Hara, who teaches here in the chemistry department, teaches this class every second year called molecular gastronomy. She's a specialist in olive oil. And so I come in and do a little session on fermentation and yogurt and try to leave a lot of time for question and answer. And at the end, among all the excellent questions, of course, some student always asks, so do you really feel like you use your Amherst education in here? Right? And unfortunately, I don't have anything new to say about it because everybody said this already. And I say 100 times a day, critical thinking. Find me a situation where it's not useful. But I think the thing about that is one of the things that I feel so grateful about with the critical thinking is the trust that if you're at point A, you don't have to see all the way to point D or X. Just being able to see point B and saying, all right, we'll figure out how to get to C when we get there, for us has been a huge thing.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for this. And so now I'm going to turn to our two panelists to offer some remarks, and then we'll get back into some Q&A. So, Karin, why don't you start us off?
All right. When I think of liberal arts, I think of my first class, food. Remember, we had that intro to liberal studies. Some people got race and sex. Some people got utopia. I got food. I was bummed. But honestly, that course was amazing. And if they offered that today, it would be the #1 course because we talked about food production, we talked about the biology, we talked about the culture of food and what it means to families and to populations. And it was that class that made me realize you can synthesize these various bodies of knowledge just to solve real world problems. And so I carry that with me all the time. Fran asked me to level set a little bit about higher education, where we are with regard to professionalism, professional programs, and the humanities and liberal arts. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes sharing where we are, the state of the state in the United States around higher education. So about 3 million folks, kids and adults, graduate from undergraduate education from a private or public institution. About 2 million of those are bachelor's degrees, 1 million of those are 2-year associate's degrees. What are the most popular degrees that are awarded? Number one is business. Business, about 20% of undergraduate degrees, bachelor's degrees are in business. The second most popular is health science and healthcare. That's about 13%. Engineering is 12%. Where are the humanities? That's about 9%. And that's down by about 4% from a decade ago. So we do have this discussion on what's happening with the humanities. It is a reality that we are seeing declines in those numbers. What is on the forefront? What is really growing and hot right now? The same things I just said. Business, healthcare. If you look over the last decade, it's grown by about 70%. Biology and biomed by about 50%. And so again, you're hearing stories about the humanities, English, history, philosophy. If you look over the last 10 years, all of those witness declines. So we are in a state of higher ed where we are seeing professional programs growing in their popularity and in their, just their emergence on the higher ed scene. And we are seeing some departments reduce some of their humanities offerings. That's a reality. And I don't see that changing anytime soon, at least in Kansas and Missouri. And so Fran asked us to think about if we are so wed and committed to liberal arts, how do we infuse that given our current situation? And I'm going to speak just from my own experience in the Midwest and what I'm seeing, where I see opportunity. And obviously you're way deeper within an institution, so we'll talk about that. But I think one thing, in Missouri, all students have to complete 42 hours of general education. That's the gen ed requirements. It's their attempt at liberal arts. It is a checklist right now. Kids are just checking off their boxes of a foreign language, an ethics course, and it's not integrated knowledge. It is a checklist. And I know the legislature tried to make it easy to transfer those, but in the process, they've made it worse because students are not really approaching that in a liberal arts fashion. So for me, that's the one area where I see we could really transform things. And there are some schools in Missouri that are having a freshman program or something that tries to integrate it, but we need more of that. And we need folks to step up on that. I would say the second piece, and this comes from me thinking across the whole K-12 to higher ed and after system, is that students don't walk onto campus, a college campus, and think, oh, I'm going to do a professional program. This starts way back. It starts upstream. It starts in middle and high school. And I know many of you have kids, and you've probably seen career and tech ed in your high schools. This is not, as we say, your father's vocational training where it was welding and cosmetology. This is really jazzy programs in business, in engineering, in health sciences, and kids are getting great exposure to real-world experiences in high school, but they're also kind of getting pushed in those directions to get certificates to move that pathway. What they're not getting pushed to do is to really think about liberal arts, to think about integrating knowledge within those programs. I don't think professional programs and liberal arts are at odds. I think, obviously, as we all know, they can be integrated. I think we need to do better in high schools to tell that story, whether as parents or as educators, counselors, support staff that reside in K-12, to say, you will figure out your profession, but the most important thing is to figure out those habits of mind, those critical thinking, communication, collaboration skills. So there's kind of my two, what I think are points of entry and infusing the liberal arts, and I'm eager to hear your thoughts.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I'm going to begin by describing a moment that I have remembered my whole career, which was walking across the quad. I think it was the fall of 1988. And in this one moment, 3 of the courses I was taking I'm pretty sure it was Buddhist Scriptures, but with Janet Gyatso, Women's Lives, Women's Lyrics with Karin Chang and Russian Literature with Stephanie Sandler. They all came together in my head, like some idea that we were talking about, they all were related. Now, this might be a better story if I could tell you what that idea was. I can't, but Karin Sanchez-Zeppler is going to come to my rescue here because several years after, I was talking to her when I was a new assistant professor, and I said to her, we only had like 3 books in English 11, and one was The Professor's House by Willa Cather, but I can't remember what the others were, and there were only 3 books, and she didn't miss a beat. She said to me, that wasn't the point. You weren't supposed to remember those books. You were supposed to learn how to read and learn how to talk about texts and learn how to talk with other people. And so when I think about liberal arts and my education, I think about learning to think and working hard to write in a way, answering prompts where it really felt like it mattered what we said. You know, it was really working to try to say something that needed to be said and making those connections across disciplines. And as Beth said, that confidence of like, oh, I can make these all come together, even if I can't remember the exact point. So in my work and I'll just also remember that I remember nothing about workforce preparation. I do remember going into the Career Center in Converse and taking those big black binders off the shelf when I was a senior, and I had no idea how to navigate them. I had no idea how to make anything that I had done at Amherst connect at all to careers. And I know that's different now, having heard a wonderful presentation earlier today about the Loeb Career Center. But my work is in public higher education, and I teach liberal art. I taught a liberal arts subject. I'm a dean of a school that is all about the arts and sciences. So I actually devote my life to thinking about the liberal arts and workforce preparation, because I work in public higher ed and we get money from the state, and we need to show how what we're doing, how the education that the state is helping to fund helps to prepare the workforce for Massachusetts or for Connecticut. So my job is to think about how do the liberal arts programs help in that work of preparing students. I also work with a lot of first-gen students, Pell-eligible students. I know that that's now the case here at Amherst, where I think I heard today that 29% of Amherst students are first-gen or low-income. So that's lining up closer to what I've experienced as well. So that means that I'm thinking all the time about the return on investment of the college degree. I need for the students to be getting practice thinking about how their degree programs are going to prepare them for work after college. It's not fair for me not to be thinking about that. So at Eastern Connecticut State, where I work now, we are designated as Connecticut's only public liberal arts university. We're a member of the Council of Public Liberal Arts Colleges, which is called COPLAC, a great organization that brings together 30 public liberal arts institutions. And we have really leaned in both to the liberal arts mission and to workforce preparation. So what I've seen is that we redid our core, and everybody has to take 3 liberal arts interdisciplinary seminars and disciplinary perspective courses across arts, humanities, and STEM and social sciences. And we've named learning outcomes of critical thinking, communication, creativity, ethical reasoning, quantitative literacy, and we give students practice talking about how they're developing those skills in their courses and lead alumni networking nights. And our faculty have even developed courses in traditional liberal arts subjects like history, psychology, English, to embed 1-credit courses towards the beginning of students' careers and towards the end of their time at Eastern to talk about what is a career in history. What can you do with a history major? What can you do with an English major? How do you explore the different areas that are open to you? And how do you prepare job materials that help you along those lines? So I'm going to talk about 2 challenges Am I doing okay? Yes.
Doing great.
Okay. So 2 challenges that we face, and Karin has sort of raised them in part, which is that especially, I'm seeing this in public higher ed, is that it's scary to major in something that doesn't have a clear connection to a career. It is much easier to major in nursing and know that you can become a nurse, to major in accounting and to know that you can become an accountant. And so from the equity issue, we're thinking a lot about how do you connect earlier with students where their talent is actually in a discipline that is in the liberal arts, but they need help learning about career pathways. So that's one big challenge. The other challenge is the budget cuts that we have now and enrollment declines overall. And those mean that low enrolled majors, the majors that don't have completers, are at risk of being cut, and those are often majors that are in the liberal arts. So you may have read about West Virginia University and the cutting of all of the languages, the gutting of the liberal arts in all kinds of institutions around the country. It's happening, all the time. There are stories about programs being cut. So those challenges of being hard to ask students to major in something that doesn't have a clear connection to career, and also hard to ask them, that their programs being closed, puts us in this situation where all of the wonderful ways that you've talked about the liberal arts and how it prepares you, those aren't available to people. So I'll just quickly end by saying the bright spot I see is that right now, so many scholarly organizations and grant funders are focusing on how do we create greater equity in higher education and connect more people to the liberal arts, and also how do we lean into making explicit the connections between, say, an English degree and success after college, or a history degree and success after college. So I would point your attention to the National Humanities Alliance, which has a wonderful website called Study the Humanities, where they have all of these podcasts with people who've had different humanities degrees talking about how that work is connected to their professions. And the Modern Language Association just got a big Mellon grant that is focused on creating greater equity and helping with career readiness. I see this with many other scholarly organizations, the Teagle Foundation, the Mellon Foundation. I think they all understand the need to support the liberal arts and to connect more people to it. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about the places in your work and in your communities that you see opportunities for advocacy. And I just want to say that I think all of us at Amherst are in a unique position because we've had the benefit of this robust liberal arts education. And that puts us in a position to be advocates for the liberal arts in our communities, to advocate for it in public higher education and public K-12 education, when we're hiring people, to value the work, the liberal arts, to look for that, to make that something that we all value in the hiring process, and to know how important it is to our democratic life, right? And to our communities and to the flourishing of our public life. So I kind of want to take the Terrace Radiant and have you all go out and advocate for the value of the liberal arts. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, folks. Well, we now want to, leave a little bit of time for a little Q&A. But first, I do want to acknowledge that. So Emily's mom is here. Hi, Mrs. Todd. How did she do? What do you think? How did she do? Can someone get the microphone back to Emily's mom? It's sort of fun. What do you think? I thought she did great.
Oh, Emmy, you were wonderful.
What is better than that?
All right. So, other than Emily's mom, does anybody have any questions, comments, reactions as you've been listening to us? Yeah, go ahead. And please introduce yourself and what year.
My name's Chris Palacios. I'm in the class of 2004. My question is, well, right before the pandemic, I had a partnership. I do educational planning. So I had a partnership with a company in China, and I went to different cities in China working with students who were interested in coming to the United States. They specifically chose me because they said they wanted someone of color to speak to them about what it's like to be of color in the United States, studying here and all those things. And I had a great relationship with them. And then when the pandemic hit, because of that interaction, the education ministry reached out to me and asked me to do a course for them. The course was on creative writing. And I was surprised that they would ask me, to do this course. They said, we want you to videotape yourself. We want you to do 10 lessons. But be mindful of the book that you choose. And this is going to be for middle school students. So I chose The Tale of Despero. And I asked, why did they want me to do this? What was the purpose? So I could learn a little bit more about the objective. And they said that what they have found was that their focus so much on science and technology had been a detriment to the children of their country. And that they thought that someone that had an American education, especially after having talked to me and stuff, that I would be good at doing that. So we taught in this course that I created, it was more about like, how would you feel if you were the mouse? How would you feel if the king that had limited all mice from being in the palace did that because they killed their wife? How do you feel about those things? How do you react in those situations? Put yourself in the mouse position. Put yourself in the princess position. And the kids were responding so well to this. They were able to articulate their feelings. And then they told me that they were changing programming in China, where they were limiting the amount of time that they were going to be focusing on math and science, giving kids nap time, and I wonder why they have learned this, and we are going into a direction that is going it's going to hurt our children, and because of political reasons, the relationship was severed. But they're trying to do, they actually told me that their favorite time period was the 80s, of how the kids were learning in the United States in the 80s. Oh, and so, and I was like, well, I guess the tail end of that. But I thought when they look back, they said they liked the nap time, they liked the creativity, that they had the arts, that we were influencing arts. And I'm wondering why it's so hard for us to get that into our education system now. Why? And in colleges, where they teach education, it's terrible. Like, these people are coming in. Schools have actually had me train teachers that are failing, that are not doing well in their school. And so I'm wondering what you guys can, comment on this. Yeah.
Well, I guess I want to say a couple of things around that. First, there have been around the world in different countries in the last 10 years, I wouldn't say resurgence, but new small liberal arts colleges sort of popping up across China, in India. Those are, because of just the sheer numbers and the demand there, and also in sub-Saharan Africa. So in the United States, we actually have a shrinking population of it's actually the shrinking now. Like, we're going to see fewer and fewer students enrolling in higher education, and we are also stuck with lower public funding for higher education. So you sort of cannot blame students and their parents for wanting to go into fields that they're going to get a pretty significant return on investment financially. Okay, so I really don't hold any blame toward that. When people are making those decisions. And similarly, I think we're seeing around the world, not on a large scale, but on a small scale, a deeper understanding of the importance and the use and the value of the liberal arts. So if you're interested in that, you should see the Daedalus edition of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences that just came out last week, it's available online, is all about international higher education, and several of the articles relate to that. And also a recent book on new international universities by Brian Penpace also speaks to this, these new liberal arts colleges that are being created around the world, very much in tandem or in support by American universities like NYU, Yale, et cetera, et cetera. But again, these are small little dots, in a much bigger stage. But Karin, Emily, anything you want to respond?
No, I've heard similar things, that there's more interest in the liberal arts and internationally. So I'm interested to read the sources you just pointed out.
I do that. I mean, just from the middle school perspective or the middle and high school perspective, I do think, since No Child Left Behind and kind of that emphasis on assessment, the math assessment and how far we're falling behind makes people very attentive to be singularly focused on math when we really should be thinking about it more holistically.
All right, yeah, great. Please remember to introduce yourself in your class. Okay.
Monica Colvin, class of '89, and and a great example of using a liberal arts education to do something that's completely unrelated to my current career. But I just want to ask, what advice do you have for parents who are worried about the ROI and for the students? So my daughter is majoring in English, and so, you said there are fewer people entering humanities or graduating with a humanities degree. There's a greater focus on tech. And so I'm worried. And when, during the summers, for instance, what are the opportunities for people who aren't doing tech or medicine or looking for business internships? I just see that there's a lack of opportunities, lack of any type of internships for people who are majoring in say, English.
Mm-hmm. So I think this is an exciting time because so many people are thinking about this problem. So I would encourage your daughter, you said, to talk to the career office about internships. Absolutely, I know that Amherst is spending a lot more time focusing on the importance of internships, and to think outside. It doesn't need to be an internship in publishing. It could be an internship in a nonprofit organization. Or it could be a way to try out what kind of work environment is she interested in? Go look at the Study of the Humanities podcasts and listen to some of those. Norton has a great graphic that shows everything that you can do with an English degree in all of these different areas. I'll send it to you. But I think that I would give advice of looking at some of those different resources and talking to career services about those options, and to know that lots of people in the humanities are focused right now on exactly this problem.
So and I'd like to add so the research is really clear that the more you learn, the more you earn. All right. So, and I knew we were going to be getting a question like this. So, for example, okay, the median income for students who earned a bachelor's degree in English was $52,000 a year for folks ages 22 to 27 and 21 to 21, compared to $30,000 a year for high school graduates. So that's a $22,000 a year, gap. So it's pretty clear that it really pays in most cases to have a college education. Now, it really also depends on what you major in, all right? So, the research is also very clear that if you major in things like business and engineering, you're going to have higher salaries. But no matter what you major in, again, by and large, you're still going to have higher earnings compared to high school graduates. You're going to have lower unemployment rates, and there's other benefits that come across as well. What we don't do a good job at in higher ed is making that really clear to students and to their parents who are looking at forking up, like $100,000 a year and not knowing if you're going to be able to pay off those loans. So, there are the Third Way, which is a think tank down in D.C., they did a really great analysis and pretty much found that, 3/4 of students who get a college degree, no matter what it is, pay that off within 10 years. But still, there's about 20%, which is not nothing, who, basically haven't been able to pay off their loans. And again, that really is related to, what you study, what you choose. And there are also issues around gender and race, right? So no matter what, if you get a great, you have a great major in college, you're going to probably earn less if I'm a woman than men are. Or if I'm, black, I'm going to earn less than what white people are making. So there are those issues as well that play into all of this. So again, could we be doing a better job making this clear to students so that they understand this, given the cost of college and the debt that people take on? Absolutely. And there are, slowly, and it's important for parents to ask these questions as you're taking your students around. Like, the colleges know they have this information, they can share it. So, all right, we'll do one more question, but we're happy to stay afterwards. We know we're also it's the reception right after this, so we don't want to make anybody cranky. So why don't we do one more question? Then if anybody wants to stay and hang out, we're happy to do that. So, get this gentleman right here.
Hi, I'm John Gahagan, and I'm an advocate for liberal arts. So I want to preface the question by saying that first. I understand the issue about the downstream problem, but given the culture and the society's emphasis on money, isn't the problem also an upstream problem, in that there aren't the jobs there with the financial incentive to support the liberal arts degree like there were when we were at Amherst?
I think honestly, it's really debatable. I mean, there are some studies that'll show that, folks that have graduated from college 10 years out are essentially underemployed, right? Which means that the jobs they're in don't necessarily require a bachelor's degree, but yet they're in these jobs as bachelors. But again, if you look at the long run, 10, 15, 20 years, my bet is on students who have bachelor's degrees or higher. That is, I think, the best bet you can make, the best investment you can make, period, end of story. But again, there's a lot of variability in that, so that's why I'm I don't want to be cagey about it, but that's sort of that's the reality. But overall, a liberal arts education is a really, really good investment. So I think maybe we'll end on that. All right, thanks everybody. Thanks Emily. Thanks Karin.